You're listening to Leadership Challenges, the podcast where global business leaders share their unique stories. But now, without further ado, our hosts, headhunter Anke Janssen and business leader Domenico Terverso.
Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast, Leadership Challenges. I'm Anke.
And here is Domenico.
Hello, really good to have you everyone here. So last time we had a fascinating discussion with Francesca Gino about Rebel Talent. And now we have a fascinating guest again. And Domenico, I would like you to introduce her because you know each other from the past. So.
Yes. We know each other from the past. We work a couple of years together, but most important, I managed to learn the story of Mirna Zerelki, which is here with us today. And first of all, it's a great pleasure to see you again and to do this little project with you. But also, she has an amazing story, and I'm sure that today she will blow everybody away because it's a really amazing story. So happy to have you here, Mirna.
I'm flattered. It's lovely to be with you, especially following such a super podcast before. I listened to the episode with Francesca Gino. It was superb.
Thank you for that. That's super. Look, we are obviously now, as Domenico said, I'm really keen to hear your story because we were talking about Rebel Talent. We had a little discussion. So I don't know the story yet, but I would really love to hear your personal story. I know you're also now in a role where you deal with Rebel Talent right now, but let's start with your personal story, please. I would really like to get to know you more.
Okay. So to summarize, I am Syrian with a British citizenship, who lives in Switzerland and works in Italy.
Okay.
So that's a little bit summarizing logistically my situation at the moment.
Nearly the United Nations in one person, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah. So I grew up in Syria and I studied there, and I started working before I went to university. And I spent more than 20 years of my career with one company, where I learned how to do things in the HR function particularly. But I was, in terms of an organizational culture, this is where I got educated in my first company, where I worked in different parts of the world. So I moved out of Syria to the UK with them, and I stayed for a long time. So I learned most there. Then at a certain point, I decided to rebel. I was doing very well in that company, and I wanted to see whether I could survive or do better somewhere else. And I left, which was a big decision for me. I left and I moved to another company, which was a completely different culture, a few bumps on the road. And I created something I was proud of. I started to create my own thing. Then I moved to work with Domenico, again, moving country, moving jobs, moving companies. Again, a very different style type of company, where I enjoyed as well, meeting a lot of very interesting people. Then I stopped working. I decided to leave the corporate world. I had some personal situations. Both my parents passed away, and I needed to deal with all the issues that were resulting from that. So I moved to Syria to deal with the administrative situation. And I ended up staying there for 9 or 10 months, working with an NGO to set it up, providing education to women and to children during the crisis in the Syrian war, which re-energized me completely. I discovered that I was tired, stressed. I had a bit of a burnout. It's not normal to talk about these things usually, but I needed a shock to start again. And I had that shock. Working with the NGO re-energized me to train new leaders, particularly women, help them get on with their life. And I felt like I started new. I went back to Europe And I started working as a consultant, doing some headhunting, but also working on the future of work and some consultancy projects with different companies. And then where I am now, I got the call. I figured out I missed the corporate world. I actually enjoy being part of a corporate culture because my passion in life is to put the mirror to that culture and to make sure I play a role in improving or making it better or moving it from good to fantastic. And I felt the challenge with this new company warranted me taking the challenge. And I think this is the best decision I made in my life. So I'm very happy where I am. My expectations changed throughout my career. I learned also, experience teaches you quite a lot of things, but I learned the most important thing is that I have a purpose, and that I am loyal to the purpose that I have. And that's where I am now.
Well, that's a super amazing story. I mean, I have to tell you, Mirna, that, last time we had the podcast with Francesca Gino and we were talking about Rebel Talents. And then Anke and I, we were discussing afterwards and we were saying, really, I think the next episode, we need to invite a Rebel Talent. And I think it took like 20 milliseconds. I say, I know one. I know a Rebel Talent. I know a leader, which is a Rebel Talent. And in a constructive way, that is... someone that can change the world from the inside, and I immediately thought about you. Now, I have my reasons, like in my heart, really to think really why do I feel that you are a Rebel Talent, or why was instantaneously thinking of you as a Rebel Talent. Yeah. But tell us, why do you think you are a Rebel Talent? Or why do you feel you are a rebel in a positive sense? Now we always talk about rebel in a positive sense.
Yes, of course it is a positive sense, but it does not start in a positive sense. Normally you hit a few walls, right? Because you are questioning things and a lot of people around you have been doing those things for years. And sometimes, that is not comfortable. And it took me a while to learn that. I feel most happiness when I am able to improve something, or when I am able to make a difference in somebody's growth or a business process. That's my happy place. It took me a while to figure out that this is what I really enjoyed, but it's a drive from within. I put a name to it after I read Francesca Gino's research, and I am really flattered that you thought about me that way, but it is not something that I called myself. On a personal side, when you start things like that, 9 times out of 10, it ends up in a frustration, or you're upsetting somebody, or you're doing things in a culture that doesn't quite accept it and you need to adapt. But I learned quite a lot. And I learned that there are certain cultures that are more receptive to it than others. That's not good or bad. It's just a matching situation. So maybe I'm most effective where this is accepted.
Mm-hmm. I have a follow-up question on something you shared when we started the conversation. Because when I got the feeling you obviously stayed long in one company, then you needed to rebel for the reasons you just explained. But the biggest impact was, I think, through that work with the NGO, right? That's from an emotional point of view.
I think it was also the time in my life or the timeline in which that happened.
Yes.
I was doing corporate like a hamster in a wheel, always achieving better and better and wanting more and more, like any eager career follower. I was in that boat. And as a job, I advise people and coach people on what to do and what to think about. And I figured out that I didn't do it for myself. Mm. So I had an experience where I crashed. So I was in a burnout for 3 or 4 months, complete burnout. So all my personal world collapsed, my professional world collapsed, and I needed that shock. That is when I moved back and stumbled upon the NGO work. It helped me regain my confidence. It helped me regain my energy, but it helped me find the purpose and focus on what matters. My objective is no longer to climb the career ladder. My objective is to make a difference, which is a completely different way of thinking about it. Now, the process in which I do that is exactly the same thing, where I feel myself in most situations as the mirror, really, to others, to organizations, with a constructive way of this is potentially how it could be better, right? So always proposing something, not just criticizing and pointing somebody's faults. It also works with the good things. So if you highlight somebody, this is very, very good, or I really enjoyed a certain phrase that somebody said, or a certain behavior or action. So I try to be balanced, but I feel most useful and most purposeful when I do this.
Mira, I have a question, because now something's coming to my mind is, what would you say about the fact that so you face an intense personal crisis and professional crisis, and you went to work in an NGO and to support others, but you went home. You went back to Syria. And
yes.
So is there a thing that when we feel when we are hit by something big, we feel the need, really, whatever it is, to go back home? Because that's something that would make me reflect, because sometimes I also have this feeling that I'm also living abroad, as you know, right?
Yes.
And then
yes.
we think when something hit us, there is something in ourselves that say, really, yeah, but now I took a hit, I need to go home. Like for a second.
I totally agree with you. At that time, I didn't think about it that way. I went there practically because I needed to deal with the paperwork and the house, all of that kind of stuff. But you are absolutely right. When you go home, it is a different thing. But home for me is not just about the place, it's about the people. So my parents who are home for me were not there, and now I am the home for my sisters. That's how it was going emotionally, but it did feel like a safe place, like a place I can nurse myself back to health, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the situation. I really love that, because you're right. I mean, nowadays, it's all about the successes, everything, what you did particularly well, etc. And I really love that you say that, because I think, there's more than we think, many people who might, feel stressed or etc. So, and one particular thing came to me, which we also discussed last time, and that was the element of fear.
Yeah.
And it feels from listening to you that you lost fear after experiencing everything.
I started my career being fearful of everything, and really thinking through and not wanting to upset people and thinking through my words. And I started being not talkative, shy. And then I developed throughout my career to be more energetic, more assertive, let's put it that way, which was good for some people and not good for others. I have to say, it's an acquired taste. I am still afraid, but I learned to hide it. Does that make sense? So I learned to be confident on the outside. I still get butterflies. I still worry about certain things, but that got less and less with the experience and with what matters to me. Right?
Butterflies.
Yeah, butterflies, yes. But during the COVID period, for example, I was a consultant and work was not, coming. And it was the first time in my life that I am in that situation. So yes, I was afraid, I was anxious. But you learn to deal with it and to hide it. You don't stop feeling it. Well, at least for me. It's. I talk about my feelings a little bit more than other people around me. So I recognize that, but I think it's important to call it out for me.
Yeah, sure. You also live in Switzerland, so talking about feelings is unusual.
It's very unusual.
I love this. This is fantastic because it's so human. And as you say, I think there's so many people, and then myself, look, I have butterflies each and every time before we go into the studio, Domenico, right? And we have this discussion. And I can see now what you mean with that you deal in a different way with your fear and how you present yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because
yes.
I think the fear part, I don't think that dealing with fear is being without fear, but I think the fear is a natural feeling. It's more like how you deal with it. I think being without fear is pretty scary. Actually, it's pretty dangerous. I mean, the fear is protecting us, right? So it's more like can you be operational? Can be effective even when you feel the fear? So you understand that something can go wrong. That's for me is the maturity also. Huh?
And it's about what you also said, Mirna, is about calling out, about speaking up.
Yeah, speaking up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think. If you got over that obstacle, over that hurdle, that means a lot, I think. By my own experience.
That I learned, and I am not afraid of speaking out anymore. Yeah, because I learned that I need to say what I think. Now I may be allowed to or not allowed to, but I need to say what I think.
Mirna, I have a question for you that I think is also the question that many of our listeners may have. Mirna, you work in large multinational. You have an amazing experience also. I mean, you start working in a big group from Syria. You went to London. You went around the world and so on. How do you challenge the status quo in a large corporation? So this is, I think, this is the question that we all want to make to you.
Yeah, I think it's about asking the question, not providing the answer. That's the summary of what's in my head. And it is about being able to provide an alternative or some options. And building the confidence and the knowledge of that corporation before I make those remarks, because otherwise I might make something completely irrelevant. So you build the trust of the people to be able to listen to you as you go. It could be small things like, we have a process to do something. Maybe we can do it this way rather than that way. Could be more effective. It could be about a leader and how he or she talks, and maybe you could say it in a different way, right? The latter, you need some confidence, some trust between the two parties to be able to say that. And it's about knowing when is a good time to start doing that. And framing things as a question, asking a question and giving options, rather than just say, this is not good, right? But I cannot stop myself from doing these things. It's just, if I see something that I have comments on or that I think can be done better, I will always say something. But how I say it and when I say it changes depending on the situation.
Yeah, because I think we are in a very, very particular time, because I think all large companies at the moment, they want to be challenged. They openly want to be challenged. They want to change. They want to embrace ESG. They want to do things different than before. But from one side, large corporations, they want to be challenged. On the other side, sometimes it's difficult to find the way. I mean, there's no, we are process driven, and there's no process to challenge. So we need to find we need to find a way. And I think, of course, for leaders, top leaders, it's easier in a way. But we want to. Yes. We also need to capture the challenge from the rest of the organization.
It's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. Usually, in all of my jobs, I am hired to challenge. Right? So when people hire me, we want you to challenge us. And I had that in my job offers in the last, 15, 16 years. Every time I move, it was about that. And that's the remit that I have. And then I start doing it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. What helps me is usually you have some sponsor in the system. Usually it's the person who hires, who is able to give some guidance and some mentorship around, what to do and what not to do, right? So like you, I would imagine you are hired to make a change or a turnaround in a certain business. Without challenging something, you cannot do it. It's not, because change is always difficult and there will always be somebody who doesn't like what you say. Now, I try to balance the people who don't like what I say versus the people who like it. I cannot eliminate the ones who don't like it. And sometimes I adjust my perspective. Sometimes the answer changes my perspective. It's about being open, asking the question, and really wanting to make a difference, not just challenging something to prove a point. It's about taking it forward. And it takes a while to do that. In organizations where trust and respect are there, particularly trust, and particularly for newcomers, or curiosity at least, it works because you're able to dive into that. If the change is too big, sometimes it doesn't work. It will be too much of a long shot.
So baby step is the answer, right?
Yes, but also chemistry, finding the right leadership to sponsor that, or finding the right moment. Timing is important.
Very good. Very good. I think this is a good advice for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also thinking about the reception of you, because you said, I like the visual of a mirror, that you say you mirror basically the culture and give input. And I can imagine the input in the past, you must have experienced different receptions of what you said.
Oh, yes.
Yes, as you just said. and so the advice you just gave about the sponsor and obviously adjusting the way you present things. And also, I found it very useful what you said, being open. And it's not about the ego, it's not about you, it's about the topic. And that's a two-way street. I really loved that advice. That was great. Thank you for that.
Very good, Mirna. It's really, it was really a pleasure to have you here with us. It's really great. And I think we will keep following you. So please keep following us and see what we come up. I will. We'll treasure the learning.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this session. And thanks for sharing your story. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mirna. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
This was another episode of Leadership Challenges. Also, for more content bites and highlight clips, make sure to follow us on Instagram. See you next time.